Welcome to the latest edition of E-commerce Agency Wisdom. We're joined again by Neil from Gorgias. His last video recording, he talked about partnerships. And this one, we wanted to talk about pitching. I actually invited Neil, or one of the first, I think the first retreat of my agency retreat that you came to was in Rome. It was the first one, right?
Yep.
And you did a presentation there about pitching. And it's one of the presentations which is recorded, that's mostly replayed by agencies and gets talked about a lot by the people that were there. So maybe you could just share a little bit about what you wish you knew about pitching that you now know that would have changed things for you earlier.
Yep. For context, I worked agency side before I joined Gorgias. And my whole sort of career has been mostly digital sales. And therefore, I've been selling directly to merchants or to businesses. And so that there's a certain type of sales process, usually a consultative sale process, which is associated with that type of selling. But then when you start to work with agencies who are then selling your product or communicating the value of your product to a merchant, but you need to communicate that value to the agency first, it's a less direct type of selling. And Rachel, you were one of the first people to really, sit down with me and kind of go through this as well. But there's a big difference between the sales pitch that Gorgias would give a merchant and how we communicate the value to the agency. And the reason is that they care about different things. So, for example, merchants care about, their CSAT score, efficiency within their teams. Agencies, they care, like, why would they recommend Gorgias to their client? It's because or any other tool. It's because the tool is going to make them look good. It's going to help them keep the promises that they've made to their clients. And essentially it all leads up to, is it going to help the client make more money? Is it going to help with client retention? Because agencies mostly care about client retention, because the longer you keep a client, the more profitable that client becomes. So I wish I'd sort of learned, I actually did learn this relatively early on in my partnerships career, but the earlier the better. From day one would have been great. But understanding, the value of perfecting or trying to perfect the agency pitch value proposition versus merchant, that's like the main thing that I would have liked to have known earlier. There was one kind of analogy as well that I remember speaking about during that Rome retreat. And I was taught this by one of my mentors when I was working at a Shopify Plus agency. And it was about Spanish, Russians, and Greeks. And it's nothing to do with the language. It's to do with the people who work at these different organizations and what they care about. So the Spaniards, they're the people who will be using the product like on a day-to-day basis. And they care about how easy is it for them to use the tool. So from an agency perspective, that's like, account managers and stuff like that. If they're going to be inside your tool, using your tool, you talk about how easy it is for them to use it. The Russians, that's like, they care about efficiency. They manage a team. So how is that tool going to help their team be more efficient? How's it going to make them look good to the Greeks? And the Greeks are the C-levels who care about the brand, the market share, how much revenues is this going to help us drive? So you can articulate your value proposition to each of these people within an agency. And you can go even deeper, particularly with like the Spanish side of it, to like articulating your value proposition for the development teams, for account management teams, for sales. The sooner you can do that for each of those roles and figure out what they care about, the better.
Okay. Yeah, it's super relevant to agencies. Like some agencies are working with founders, so they're going to be Greeks. And then some people are when you're working with a bigger brand, they're working with ecom managers, ecom directors, and they're going to be Spanish or Russians. So it's just establishing very quickly in the sales process, who am I speaking to and what do they really care about? And then you sell according to that rather than giving the wrong message to the right person and you can lose a deal.
And it sounds like it's like sales 101, and to a degree it is, but so many people don't do it.